Oh, hey there. Can we please talk about UFC 275? Basically, if you haven't seen this before, welcome. If you have, welcome back. It's a Burt Locker Fights in 15. Basically, what I like to do is I look at the card, I see some fights that kind of jump out at me that I think are going to, at the very least, be interesting. I break them down, do a bit of research into the fighters, how they like to win, how they possibly lose, their strengths, weaknesses, all that kind of good stuff, and then I put all that information together and I make the most terrible bet possible. This is effectively, I like to put it down as an accumulator. It's like an MMA scratch card. It's like a scratch card, except you get to see people punch each other in the face for money. So I'm going to be going through this, so yeah, stay with me for the Burt Locker Fights in 15 for UFC 275. We're starting off in the welterweight division, Jack Della Maddalena against Ramazan Emeev. Now, this one is a kind of striker versus grappler affair. Oddly enough, though, Ramazan Emeev is coming in as a slight underdog here, which is odd because he's one of those bearded Dagestani wrestler guys who everybody is afraid of. Now, it's weird to see him as an underdog, but not completely, because he's not quite as dominant as some of his counterparts. Now, that's not to say he's not good. He is. He's extremely good. He's a pretty big dude. I mean, he's like 5'10", got a 76-inch reach, so he does have the reach advantage over Maddalena, who's got a 73-inch reach and comes in at 5'11". Now, he's 35, so he's 10 years the senior of Maddalena. And usually that means the younger guy will win, but actually 35 isn't overly old, not for welterweights anyway, especially considering he is a former middleweight as well. He's a former M1 middleweight champion, actually, so he does have a fair few submissions to his name, but not in the UFC. In the UFC, he's literally all gone to decisions. And he hasn't won all of them. He lost to Danny Roberts last time. I was very happy about that. I like Danny Roberts. Split decision, razor close. It really was. He's very, very good, very strong, got good wrestling control, but he does have good submissions, but he generally he's position over submission. And for that reason, he usually ends up going the distance, and more often than not he does end up winning. He's 20-5 at the moment, and then you've got his opponent from Perth, Australia, 11-2, Maddalena. Now, he hasn't really had many fights in the UFC. He's predominantly a boxer, and he looked really good against Pete Rodriguez. His 1-2 in particular was outstanding. He closed the distance with the 1-2 really well, and it's just a very fast, just bread and butter boxing. But the footwork's really good, and it's very good at closing the distance because he does the 1-2. His left cross is particularly powerful, and when he gets really into that, when he kind of gets his combinations going, when he moves in close, his hooks are very, very good, but that left cross is a real weapon. He gets some really good torque on that particular punch. So for me, this really comes down to how he defends the wrestling of Emeev. Me personally, I don't think that he will. I think that Emeev is going to have a pretty dominant night here. I think it is going to go to a decision again. But for me, taking Emeev as an underdog here, because like I said, he is a full mixed martial artist, Maddalena. He is good in most areas, but predominantly he likes to use his hands. I don't know how well he's going to do against this Dagestan style that Emeev is bringing to the table. So you're getting the Emeev by decision at 3.25. That's better than even money. So that is what I'm putting on the bet slip for that one. That's terrible bet. Absolutely awful. So this next fight is Rogerio Bontorin versus Manel Kape. Now, I've done a lot of research into this one. It should be a really entertaining fight, and this one is just for my Patreon subscribers. So if you are on the Patreon, head over to there now, and well, if you'll be watching this whole video anyway if you're on the Patreon, so you're welcome. If you're not on the Patreon, head over to the Burt Locker on Patreon. It's like £1 a month, and you get exclusive fights, early access to the picks, all that good stuff. So this next one, Patreon exclusive breakdown, Rogerio Bontorin against Manel Cap at flyweight. Now, so then next up we've got Zhang Weili against Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Now, this is a rematch of what was an absolutely classic fight where, you know, forget the boogie woman. Joanna, she looked like the elephant woman after that fight. Like, it was that one with that really bizarre swelling on her forehead, really nasty. However, what I would say is that, look, going back and looking at that fight, you know, Zhang Weili, she looked really good in rounds 1 and 2, and she did a lot of damage in rounds 1 and 2 as well. Despite the damage, Joanna actually looked better fight-wise in rounds 3, 4, and 5. It was a close one, that. I arguably thought that that Joanna outpointed Zhang Weili in the last 3 rounds, but it was such massive damage. I can see why the judges gave it to her. I don't think it was a bad decision at all, but I just think it was a very, very close fight. Extremely close, in fact. Now, the key difference to this one is that it's taking place over 3 rounds, not 5 rounds. And that really puts things in favour of Zhang Weili. Because basically, Joanna in the last fight, because you have to look at the last fight, that's what we've got to go on. Right, Joanna might have come out, come back looking completely different. Zhang Weili might be completely different, but we have to go on what we know. And what we know is that Zhang Weili was very strong in the first, like, 2.5 rounds in the first encounter, and she started to fade. She's quite a well-muscled fighter. She's quite stacked. She carries quite a lot of muscle, quite a lot of power, and that is going to cost you in the later rounds, generally speaking. There are always exceptions to every rule. But Zhang Weili, she's only got 3 rounds this time, so she's not going to fade, I wouldn't have thought, which I think is a problem for Joanna. Don't get me wrong, Joanna is as capable as anybody. She's absolutely a fantastic fighter. She's been slightly different coming into this one. She's been slightly less brash, slightly less kind of cocky in the media. But I think she's got a lot of respect for Zhang Weili, and I think the respect goes both ways. I think it's going to be a hell of a fun fight. Joanna, because you know what? Over 3 rounds, we might see a different Joanna. It's a very different kind of amount of time, because Joanna knows that she's only got 3 rounds, so she may come out swinging for the fences, and her striking is very good. She's an excellent kickboxer, really, really excellent. But then again, like I said, Zhang Weili is just she's very strong, particularly in the first 2 rounds, which is why in this one I am taking Zhang Weili. I think it is going to be a decision again. I think it will be unanimous. I think it will be slightly more dominant. I think that Zhang Weili will at least win the first 2 rounds fairly emphatically. I think the final round will be closer as Zhang Weili starts to fade a bit, but I don't think that it will be quite enough. Zhang Weili by decision, 2.38, throwing that on the bet slip. That's a terrible bet. Yeah, they all are. They all are. A little shout out if you want a real underdog, take Talia Santos to knock out Valentina, as that is 11-1, and she does have like a heavy Muay Thai style. She's not got bad takedowns as well, but look, it's very unlikely. But if you just want to have a punt on an underdog, I feel like the only way that Santos wins this one for me is if Valentina just gets caught with something. And you know, that's always possible. It is always a possibility. 11-1, that's not that's pretty good. Just a very small stakes bet on just the possibility, because every champion must fall at some point, you know, apparently. But Valentina, the only way I see her losing at the moment is that if she kind of overlooks her opponent and kind of gets a little bit complacent, but I just don't think that's in her character. Do you? Let me know in the comments. I don't see that in Valentina's character. I think that she's too professional, she's too good, she's too ingrained in just being the best, and I don't see her losing anytime soon, and I certainly don't see it to Talia Santos. Famous last words. Watch Talia Santos get the upset now. This is why I'm saying, you know, it might be worth a very small stakes bet. I think if it happens, it would have to be a knockout, and at 11-1, that's maybe worth putting on. But I'm not putting that on the accumulator. I'm not doing it. Not doing it. So then we move into the main event: Glover Teixeira versus Jiri Prochazka. Now this is an interesting one, because obviously you've got Glover Teixeira coming in as the underdog because he's defending his belt. he against this new up-and-coming, this rising star who is just a rising star and a rising star, incidentally, because he had a lot of fights in rising. He was the rising light heavyweight champion, I think. Was he? Yeah, I think so. Something like that. Anyway, I don't think he fought too many people in rising that were kind of note. You know, Fabio Maldonado, Mohamed Lawal, CB Dollaway, guys like that. That's just off the top of my head. I can't think who else he fought. But my issue with Prochaska in this fight is go back and watch the fight against Dominic Reyes. Now, Dominic Reyes, he's pretty good, but I just feel like Dominic Reyes gets more kind of kudos than, not saying deserve, because he's a very, very good fighter, very, very dangerous. But I think he almost gets too much kudos for that fight with Jon Jones, where I do believe he lost. Look, at the end of the day, it's not whether I believe he lost or not. He did. The judges saw it, Jon Jones winning that fight, and a lot of people. The problem here is that Reyes, when he fought Jan Blachowicz, he completely overlooked Jan. He thought, look, I beat Jon Jones, because he believes he beat Jon Jones. He's like, I beat Jon Jones, the greatest of all time. This guy, I am going to blast through him, right? And I don't think he thought that against Jiri Prochaska. I think Jiri just caught him with some really big shots. Because Jiri Prochaska, when he is offensive, when he's going forward, when he's on the attack, he is spectacularly good. However, he leaves a lot of openings. He gets hit a lot. He often runs after his opponent. He could run into something very, very easily. His chin saved him, really, against Dominic Reyes. Now, the reason I mentioned Reyes looking past Jan Blachowicz is because I got a feeling that Jiri Prochaska could, not saying he could have the same mindset against Glover Teixeira, because look, on paper, Dominic Reyes, he's a surging young talent who went the distance with Jon Jones, who's a perennial title contender, who's powerful, knocks people out everywhere. Argument is that maybe Reyes would be a tougher fight. If you just lined up on paper, which one would you rather fight? The 40-odd-year-old Glover Teixeira, or this young stud Dominic Reyes? You think that the tougher fight is Dominic Reyes. Now, I'm not saying that that's what's going through Jiri Prochaska's head. I'm saying it's a possibility that he could be thinking, well, the hard work is already done. This is my easiest opportunity to get the belt. The champion, great as he is, he's pushed 40. He's towards the end of his career. He knows he's retiring at the end of the year. Glover's been very vocal about that. So will Jiri maybe overlook Teixeira? It's possible. I'm not sure how much of a factor that even needs to be, because, as I said, the main issue I have with Prochaska is, look, he's so much fun to watch. Don't get me wrong. Super fun to watch. But he's so reckless. Like, he got caught by that left, but because don't forget, Glover has got some heavy hands. He's got a lot of knockouts going to his name. He's got more knockouts to his name than he has submissions, and he has a lot of submissions to his name. Glover could very easily put something on him that rocks him. Now, when Reyes did that to Prochaska, because he rocked him, he stunned him real nice. Prochaska shot in for one of the sloppiest takedowns I've ever seen in my life. Like, literally, it was awful. Reyes had the guillotine on, but didn't quite have it, right? If he does that against Teixeira gets that neck, it's done. It's over. Like, Teixeira is such a high-level submission guy. He's not letting go of that neck, especially not with that stupid hair. That hair that's gonna be a problem. If you're trying to get your head out of a guillotine, good luck with that big fucking lever sticking out the back of your head. I think that may be what happens here, honestly. I think that looking at his striking technique, as flashy and as fun as it is to watch, he leaves so many openings. He makes so many actual fundamental, not mistakes. Well, they are mistakes, to be fair, because he leaves himself open to counters like all the time. And he misses something, he gets caught with something. Somehow he lets Glover get the body lock. Glover Teixeira from that body lock is so good at getting the fight to the ground. He gets that fight to the ground. This one is going to be easy. Not easy, but like it's going to be... I feel like the difference between Glover and Jiri Prochazka on the ground is probably greater than the distance between them on the feet. I feel like Glover Teixeira can easily stand with Jiri Prochazka, but I don't think on the ground Jiri Prochazka will stand a chance against Glover Teixeira. And that's where I'm going with this one. That is my prediction. My prediction on this one is Glover Teixeira to get another submission. His last 6 fights, 4 submissions, right? I think he gets a 5th one here because I just think that like Jiri, he leaves too many openings for a veteran like Glover Teixeira not to take advantage of. Glover has seen it all. He's been around the block. Glover takes advantage of one of those many openings that Jiri will leave. Because the other problem is, Jiri, he goes pedal to the floor for the whole way. Against Reyes in round 2, I mean, he got him out of there with that big spinning back elbow, but he looked a bit fucked afterwards because he was just all out the whole time. Maybe he does that and maybe he puts Glover away in round 1. That would be the only side bet that I would do. Actually, I'm going to have a quick look at what the odds are on that because I only thought about that earlier on today. What the odds are on Prochazka by knockout in round number 1, because I think if it happens, Jiri Prochazka for the knockout in rounds 1 or 2, they look like shit odds, to be fair. What have we got there? Rounds 1 or 2, you're only getting just better than even money. Although Glover by submission in rounds 1 or 2 you've got 9s on that, so you've got 8 to 1. That's not a bad bet because I think it probably happens in rounds 1 or 2. But Jiri Prochazka to win by knockout TKO in round, where is it? Like this. Right, round and method of victory. So Jiri Prochazka, TKO stoppage, round 1. You're still only getting 3.5s on that. Because look, that is probably where, if Jiri's going to win, I think that's maybe the most likely outcome. But I don't think that's what happens. I really don't. I think that we're going to see Glover Teixeira take advantage of one of those many openings. Just for the submission, you're getting 4.5. That's 3.5 to 1. I'm adding that to the bet slip. Come on, Glover. You've got one more in you, fella. You got one more in you. I'm rooting for you. Not that I dislike Jiri in any way. It should be a really fun fight. It's one of those fights it would be a shame to see either one of them lose. But my prediction is Glover Teixeira. So in this one, I'm putting all of my bets together on one accumulator. So that's 191.04 to 1. That's a terrible bet. Absolutely awful. I'm going to slam that on. I'm going to be rounding these bets up, doing a recap early next week, Tuesday or Wednesday. And until then, keep those odds long and those bets terrible.